Have you ever watched your HOA president treat your own property like her personal kingdom? What if she sent fake cops to terrorize your traumatized child? And what if the one man who could stop her knew exactly how to make her perfect community go up in smoke? It started on a picture-perfect Tuesday in Pinecrest Foothills, the kind of California mountain enclave where every blade of grass stood at attention and every neighbor smiled with a calculator in their back pocket. I was Ethan Brooks, State Fire Safety Compliance Officer by day, single dad trying to keep the nightmares at bay by night. For years ago, a wildfire took my wife and nearly our whole world. My daughter Lily, 17 now, still woke up some nights gasping for air that smelled like smoke. So I did what any father would. I converted the old shed into her private studio. Sunlight pouring in, a solid lock only she controlled, canvases stacked like therapy sessions she actually wanted to attend. No more sleeping in the main house reliving the flames. Just her space, her rules, her peace. The knock came like a bad punchline. HOA Queen Bee for 8 glorious years stood on my driveway in her pastel blazer and pearl necklace, 2 burly guys in black tactical vests flanking her like discount Secret Service. Their laminated HOA contractor badges swung like cheap medals. No warrant. Slicing through the afternoon. Ethan, darling, this is simply unfortunate, she announced loud enough for the entire cul-de-sac to catch every word. That little outbuilding is unauthorized under Section 4.2. We're vacating it today. Aesthetic harmony, of course. Property values don't maintain themselves. I didn't raise my voice. I just slipped my phone from my pocket, hit record, and let the comm roll out like a slow fuse. You're within 20 feet of a minor's private dwelling with no legal notice or authority. That's Penal Code 602.5 territory. This is now a police matter, and everything is being recorded. The men froze mid-step. Victoria's Botox smile twitched once, twice. Really, Ethan, must we escalate? This is about standards. Rules keep us safe. Safe. The word almost made me laugh out loud in that bitter way that tastes like ash. This was the same woman who fined old Mr. Delgado last spring for hanging non-approved wind chimes because they disrupted neighborhood serenity. Yet here she was, ready to rip the only sanctuary my kid had left. Lily's studio door cracked open just enough. She clutched the faded teddy bear she hadn't touched since the funeral, eyes huge and glassy. Dad, her voice cracked like thin ice. I unlocked the side gate myself, slow and deliberate, stepping between her and the vests. It's okay, kiddo. Victoria's tone sharpened, still wrapped in that fake politeness. You can't simply ignore the covenants, Ethan. The board has spoken. I met her eyes, letting the sarcasm drip just enough to sting. Funny how those covenants only seem to matter when they pad your little power trip, Vicky. That studio was permitted in 2020 and grandfathered under state law. But hey, keep quoting bylaws while you're standing here trying to traumatize a 17-year-old who already lost her mom to fire. The low rumble of engines saved the moment. My fire crew buddies rolling up on their Harleys, not flexing, just parking like silent backup. Victoria's lips pressed into a thin line that could curdle milk. She waved her goons back with a flick of her manicured hand. This isn't over, Ethan. Compliance. They slunk away like scolded dogs, leaving tire tracks and awkward silence. I turned to Lily, voice soft. Lock it if you need to. She didn't answer, just clicked the deadbolt from inside. But I knew Victoria Langford didn't lose. She regrouped, whispered campaigns, and sharpened her claws. The next morning I hit the clubhouse before the overpriced espresso machine even hissed to life. The place gleamed with vaulted ceilings and curated furniture nobody actually used, walls plastered with Victoria's framed newsletters like campaign posters for a dictator who thought she was beloved. Residents trickled in with their reusable mugs and polite nods that said, I saw nothing. Then I spotted Trent Holloway near the bulletin board, ex-Army, new to the board. The guy who'd campaigned on transparency before Victoria folded him into her pocket like a bad poker hand. Morning, Trent, I said, keeping it casual. He glanced around, then leaned in. Heard they called yesterday's circus a wellness check. Skipped the part about the vests and your daughter screaming. I chuckled, the sound low and dark. Wellness. While we're on wellness, take a look at that new community pavilion they're fast-tracking behind Lot 12. The trail they rerouted for it looks like it just buried the main fire evacuation route. And the electrical conduit sticking out of the ground? No grounding, no fire-rated casing, sitting right next to dry brush. Real wellness move, right? Trent's jaw tightened. A passing neighbor muttered, "You should have done something yesterday." We all heard Lily. Trent swallowed hard. I didn't vote for the forced entry. Here. That was my opening. Emergency exit signs in the corner. Those don't match the permits I pulled last night either. If she's cutting corners on the clubhouse, imagine what else she's burying. Trent looked like he'd swallowed glass. She said the marshal signed off. He didn't, I said quietly. The silence stretched, heavy with the kind of truth that could topple small empires. Victoria preached family values and safety first at every potluck while building fire traps for a vanity yoga deck. Classic HOA hypocrisy. Fine you for dandelions, bury a hazard under concrete, then call it progress. I spent the afternoon on the trail, camera rolling. The pavilion site was a joke. Fresh gravel over what used to be the official escape path, conduit cracked open to the elements, faint scorch marks inside like a preview of coming attractions. Click after click. Trent appeared at the fence line, polo half untucked, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Victoria's got spotters now. I stood slow. This isn't vandalism. This is obstruction of a state-designated evacuation route and 3 separate fire code violations. You know it. There you go. He rubbed his neck, voice dropping. I didn't sign off on the reroute. Votes were counted before they hit the table. Speak up and she freezes your dues reimbursement or your pool keycard. It's her game. Then stop playing it, I said. For the record, not for me. Trent stared at the exposed wiring like it might bite him, then nodded once. The first crack in Victoria's armor had just formed, and she still thought her crown was secure. By the time I clocked in at the district office the next day, the quiet bombs were already dropping. Historical incidents in Pinecrest, covered up brush fires, a generator blaze settled under the table. Trent had flagged 1 year ago. It vanished. I filed the routine memo that would trigger deeper review, copied the county fire marshal, and slipped a footnote about unpermitted trail modifications to the insurance liaison. Victoria could smile her way through HOA meetings, but state auditors and insurance underwriters didn't do polite. The fuse was lit. Emergency board email hit inboxes by lunch, summoning everyone for a special session on community security. Translation: she smelled blood in the water and wanted to rally the flock before the wolves arrived. Dusk painted the ridge in amber when I returned to the trailhead. The pavilion site looked even more sinister in low light, sagging green fencing, rotting signs promising summer 2026 wellness paradise, and that cracked conduit still grinning like a bad omen. I crouched, flashlight beam catching the scorch marks again. Proof. Tangible, undeniable. A shadow flickered behind the fence. Watching, silent. Victoria's eyes and ears. Encrypted folder, heart steady even as adrenaline hummed. She could watch all she wanted, trying to break into my daughter's room. Back home, Lily was in the main kitchen making tea. First time she'd used that space since the contractors showed up. "They're not done, are they?" she asked quietly, sliding a mug across the table. I shook my head. She reached into her hoodie pocket and pulled out a flash drive. Ring cam footage. "You always say duplicate everything." Pride hit me harder than any fine ever could. That footage wasn't just evidence. It was a minor trapped in her legal residence while unlicensed goons tried to force entry on an illegal order. Liability jackpot. Match herself.
I didn't sleep. Table like a loaded gun. By sunrise, I was in the county fire marshal's office, folder thick with photos, emails, and Trent's quiet confirmations. Chief Lane flipped through everything, plugged in the drive, and watched Victoria's polite smile turn feral on camera while Lily screamed behind the door. He exhaled slow. This is systemic. Path. Unpermitted electrical in a high fire zone, and now threatening a child? I'll escalate to Sacramento myself. The audit machine lurched into gear. Word would travel fast, but I was already 3 steps ahead.
Victoria called an emergency community assembly 3 nights later. The recreation hall was packed, shoulder to shoulder, whispers thick as smoke. She stood at the podium in her signature crimson blazer, hair perfect, voice dripping authority. Recent interference with community projects has put us all at risk, she began, eyes scanning for enemies. Certain residents are undermining our standards. Murmurs rippled. I sat 3 rows back, binder on my lap, Lily beside me holding her head high. Victoria's gaze landed on me. He can dictate how we run our neighborhood. She smiled that same poisoned smile. Trespassing, damaging property, spreading lies. I stood slow, letting the room quiet. Lies. I lifted the first foam board, the scorched conduit glowing under the lights. Gasps rippled. So-called wellness pavilion. No insulation, no sealant, inches from fuel brush. 1 spark and half the ridge goes up. And this, I flipped to the trail photo, was your second evacuation route, buried without county approval so you could mark it a vanity project. Every family here now funnels into one exit in a wildfire. The hall erupted. Victoria slammed the podium. Things. I held up the USB. Didn't think so. Neither will your insurance company when they see a minor terrorized in her own home while your unlicensed contractors tried to break down the door. More gasps. Trent rose from the back row, voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. He's telling the truth. No votes. No filings. Self because she ordered it. Victoria's face drained white. Traitor. But the room had already turned. Bethany from down the street pushed forward, Pomeranian under one arm. We all heard Lily screaming that day. The deck. The chant started soft, then roared. Step down. Step down. Victoria pounded the podium, composure shattered, lipstick smeared from biting her lip. Board members edged away like rats from a sinking ship. The fire marshal's deputy slipped through the crowd and handed her a sealed envelope right there in front of everyone. Temporary suspension of governance authority pending full audit and insurance review. Effective immediately, her knees buckled. She sank into her chair, blazer crumpling, the queen reduced to just another neighbor with a clipboard and too much ego. The weeks that followed were pure poetic justice. The audit report landed in every mailbox, violations confirmed, projects frozen, funds frozen. Insurance suspended coverage citing unacceptable liability exposure. No more rentals, no loans, no cash flow for Victoria's little empire. The board dissolved, an interim group took over, Trent among them, finally able to breathe. Neighbors who once whispered now spoke up. Bethany led a petition banning private security contractors. The old trail was restored, brush cleared by volunteers. For the first time in years, Pinecrest foothills felt like a community instead of a... One evening, Lily and I walked the reopened trail. The fencing was gone, the conduit properly buried and sealed. She stopped at the spot where it all started and looked up at me. You didn't just fight for me. I wanted to say I'd only done it for her, but looking out at the lights in every cabin and the neighbors waving as they passed, I realized she was right. Victoria's reign was over, lawsuits pending, reputation in ashes. And the ridge could finally breathe. If you've ever been pushed too far by clipboard tyrants who hide behind rules while endangering the very people they claim to protect, hit subscribe and drop your story below. Because sometimes the quiet dad with the camera and the codes is exactly what it takes to watch the whole house of cards burn down in the most satisfying way possible. Never underestimate the quiet guy with the clipboard and the law on his side. HOA Karens thrive on fear and silence. Strip that away with patience, paperwork, and truth, and their empires crumble faster than a cheap fence in a wildfire. Fight smart. The rest takes care of itself.